Welcome to High Point University's premier life skills seminar featuring HPU's in-residence leaders and other global change agents.
Let's please welcome David Horsager. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hall. Good morning. Is it still morning in this part of the world? Yeah, you can. Okay. So, I believe the number one question everybody's asking about you is not what you think it is. It's not, do I like you? I've got friends I like a whole lot. I wouldn't go into business with them in a million years. The number one question everybody's asking about you, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, the possible employer, your professor, your parents, the number one question everybody's asking about you is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? Can I trust you to do a good job with this? Can I trust you with that? Can I trust you with my daughter? Can I trust you? The question they're asking is, can I trust you? Everything of value, this goes back to the graduate work, everything of value is built on trust. This is an economic fact. I believe it's never a leadership issue at the core. You never have a leadership issue, by the way. My buddy Mark's going to be here tomorrow and talk about leadership, but at the core, it is never a leadership issue. The only reason you follow someone or not is trust, right? It's never a sales issue. You get a lot of great salespeople and sales training. It's never a sales issue at the core. The research would say the only reason you buy something has something to do with trust. In the classroom, it's never a learning issue. The only reason the only way to increase learning in any classroom is to increase trust either in the teacher, the content, or the psychological safety or trust of the room. It's never an innovation issue. There's only one way to increase innovation on a team. You have to increase trust so that people will share ideas, get creative. Is that right? At the core, it's always, even diversity, equity, inclusion. The biggest Harvard study shows diversity on its own pits people against each other, generally, in some way, any kind of diversity, unless you increase trust. And when you do that, you get enormous benefits of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and so forth. So, everything of value is built on trust. The question everybody's asking is this, but I know what some of you are thinking. Oh, we're going to talk about trust. I thought, I'm in economics. I'm a finance major. I'm going to talk about trust. I bet we're going to have to give back rubs in this session and do trust falls. Before we do those, here's your trust fall.
Buddy, your sister wants to try something. It's called a trust fall. She just learned how to do it.
Okay.
You want to try it?
Sure.
It's super easy. All right. What you need to do is you close your eyes, and then you're going to fall, but she's going to catch you.
Okay.
All right? You promise to get your brother, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. So close your eyes. Now go catch your brother. All right, on the count of 3, I want you to fall, but she'll catch you. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no.
All right, so we got a little trust issue. So, the problem is we have different pictures of trust in our mind. We have different views of trust. Some think, oh, transparency is trust. Well, it can be, but some people are so transparent on social media, I don't trust them for a second. Because confidentiality is also trusted, right? We can think, well, trust, that's just confidence. Well, it can be. If that looks like arrogance, it's not. We can think, well, if I extend more trust to my team, I'll get more out of them until I extend too much, and then I got a big problem. So we have to take a different look at trust and see what it really is. So different pictures of trust. Gentlemen in the room, there's a picture of trust. Who wants to be the first dude? You're up. My kids understand trust. When they were little, I got a picture. I walked in the public restroom. Stall wasn't available. But you can see they trust each other. Even animals have a perspective. Talk to the person next to you. You have exactly 30 seconds to come up with one word for trust. Be ready wherever you are in the room. I will call you out. What's one word? How would you define trust if you had one word you had to define as trust? Talk to the person next to you. 30 seconds. One word to define trust. Be ready. All right, here we go, team. Back and forth a little bit. If you have a, let's relax a little bit. You guys are you're a little bit like you're in a nice hall and you're like, ooh, I can't respond very much. Like, hey, relax. Roll your arms, roll your shoulders a little bit. All right, okay, get ready, okay? Get engaged. Okay, so what's a word for trust? Do with the big biceps and the pinkish shirt. You're wearing a nice, yeah, you don't wear a pink shirt and not want to be called on. What do you guys say? Honesty is a word, sure. All right, what do you think? What dude looking down with that? You thought if I looked at you, that would help if you looked away, right? So, yeah, with the hat on, what's a word for trust? Loyalty, thank you. Right up here in the red shirt. You get bright shirts, right? Oh, me? What? Devotion. Yes, okay, back center, greenish shirt for my eyes. What do you got? Confidence. If I confident in it, what about the smart people over here with a tie on? What do you think, sir? Belief. I have a belief in it, all right? Mr. Bills, what's the word for trust? Integrity. All right, someone from that back, the back table, what do you got? Accountability. And up here? Up, another whole level? Faith. If I have faith in it, I tend to trust it. Isn't that true? All these are true. What are some other words? Throw some out really quick. Reliability, respect. Honor, whatable? Dependable. Responsibility. Loyalty. All these are true, right? All these are true. So we define it this way in the original research and continue to define it this way, today out of the Institute. Trust Edge Leadership Institute, I think we put up the biggest study out of North America on trust and leadership. Generally, it's about 1.7% margin of error on the U.S. side, 1.8% on the global side. Pretty significant study. This is how we define it. And it takes some of these and puts them together. Trust is a confident belief in a person, a product, or an organization. And when I confidently believe in you, everything changes. Everything. If you're an econ major, it changes things. If you're a finance major, you have to think about trust. If you are in the School of Management, you've got to deal with this. At the core, it is always a trust issue. Here's what happened. In my original grad work, this was the big original finding. It's summed up on one slide right here. Trust was always the leading indicator. When trust went up, then output, morale, attention, productivity, innovation went up. Cost, problem, skepticism, time to get anything done went down. You had to deal with the trust issue. What's the problem today? The reason I wrote the newest book, Trusted Leader, is people are dealing with the wrong problem. They call it a leadership problem. They don't know what they're talking about. They talk about a communication problem. It's just kind of this overview. They have good intention, but they aren't solving the real thing. A bigger issue is we say, we got an engagement issue. At the core, it's never an engagement issue. What did we find? The reason we created the Enterprise Trust Index is because if you measure trust and engagement and you increase trust, then you'll actually get more engagement. What about Net Promoter Score? Who's familiar with it? Net Promoter Score, it asks the question, it's a reasonable white paper, and you will learn about it quickly because it's a big, it's fairly big in big companies, and it basically asks the questions, would you refer us to someone else? What do we find? Referrals are much stickier than just customer loyalty or customer service, right? You would actually go out of your way to say, you should go there, right? That's sticky. And yet, you cannot increase your Net Promoter Score hardly without increasing trust. You don't increase referrals with referrals. You increase referrals by increasing trust. You have to deal with the trust issue. At the core, it's always a trust issue. Marketing. There's only one way to amplify any marketing message. You have to increase trust in the message. You have to. It's the only way. So if you want to think about it, we won't go into a lot of research today, but just simply, even with analogies, you can think about what's the cost of a lack of trust. Put a lock on something. Why do I put a lock on anything? Because I don't trust you. Let's try that again. Why do I put a lock on anything? Because I don't. It's the only reason. The lock business is built on a lack of trust. All right, let's start over. I'm going to give 100% for the next hour. You are too. Ready? Okay. The reason I put a lock on anything is because I don't. That's right. Because I don't trust you. So what is the cost of putting a lock on something? What's the cost? What's that? Money! Thank you, brilliant one. Money, and the other cost, which is much bigger, is time. Now I'm going to open it. Every time I go through the gate, what if it's a combination lock? Take forever more. Time. Think about anybody you trust. Write a text to someone you trust, right? Boop, done. Now, write a text to someone you don't trust. How long does that take? How are they going to take, delete. How are they going to take, delete, right? Think about a friend you trust. What about a friend you don't trust? Guarded. You start to have kids. You got a kid you trust? No problem. You got a kid you don't trust? Keeps you up at night. I got one I trust with today. I trust my kids. I've got a great quattro of 4 kids. A lack of trust is the biggest cost to the bottom line. And we started noticing it. In fact, in my first, once we started to apply this grad work, the first company said we saved them millions of dollars in attrition costs in 9 months. We had a big company you would all know, Fortune 50 company, that said they gained 11% market share in 1 year. It was a big deal. We had people say it tripled their sales. We've had people say it saved their marriage. I don't care what it does, but you have to start to see that you deal with the trust issue. So talk to the person next to you for a moment. Well, actually, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to give you a couple pieces of research first. I'm just going to go into just a bit of data points. If you want access to any of this, you can talk to Dr. Hall, and he can give you loads of videos and other things, but also access to the newest studies. The 22 Outlook is coming out just this month. So, a couple ideas. Number one reason people want to work for an organization, over the last several years in first world countries. Number one reason, over more pay or a more fun work environment with a ping pong table. Number one, they want to trust their leadership more than anything else. This is the referral point right here. 9 out of 10 Americans wouldn't refer a product or service they don't trust. What about generations? Boomers said they'd work longer hours, be a better team player, they just trusted their senior leaders. Turns out, plus or minus 1%, everybody said exactly the same thing. Think trust doesn't affect the bottom line? Half of Americans have invested $1,000 or more based purely on trust. I was actually blown away by the next statistic that found 13 million Americans have invested $100,000 or more based purely on trust. I started thinking if this was true for me. We had a little real estate investment company. We had some real estate. This last piece of property, I had bought it while I was being driven to a speaking event on my mobile device because my manager said it was a good buy for what we want. I hit a button on my device, we bought it. 7 years later, last summer, we sold that last piece of property. I started thinking about this, and it was a good situation. I had never been there. I've never been inside. How efficient it is it when we can actually trust? What if I couldn't? I got to go check up. I got to do all that, right? People you don't trust, you got to check up on. So, a lack of trust is the biggest cost we have. Question.
Is that number cumulative to the 13 million Americans?
13 million Americans. I actually need to look. Can I show you this afterwards? It's a great question. Great question. I need to show. I actually need my lead researcher here on this one exactly, but it's a very good question. Either way, it's a powerful statistic. Wouldn't you agree? No, not necessarily? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I wish I could answer that quickly right now. I should have checked on their slides. 92% of people said they would trust their senior leader more if they're more transparent about their mistakes. This is an interesting statistic because it's not transparent, it's about transparency about your mistakes. So think about this. What we learn is we don't connect with people that are just transparent about how cool they are, right? I won this, I'm all state on that, I'm the coolest this. We connect on mistakes, on challenges, on you had to go through this, I had to go through this. Transparent about their mistakes. So a little data point, great question. I wish I could answer that quickly, I should be able to. Here's what I do want you to see overall, the biggest cost you have. Think about it for yourself. I'm going to have you ask this question. Right now, where you're at. How many of you are in an internship right now? How many of you have a job right now, other than school? Okay? For those of you that have a job or internship, think about it there. For those of you who don't, just think about it in your relationships. Talk to the person next to you. What is a lack of trust costing me? We're all imperfect. I teach at the Institute. I have a lack of trust. I have issues, I have challenges, I have imperfections. What I can think of places, that lack of trust is costing me time here. That lack of trust is costing me. What's a lack of trust costing you? As a friend, a family member, a manager, a team player, an employee, okay? Talk to the person next to you. See if you can come up with a direct cost. Maybe it's not a number, but it's something. It's productivity here. It's something, right? Talk to the person next to you. You have 1 minute. Okay. What do we got? What do you guys talk about? Yes?
Happiness.
It costs happiness. Yes. It adds stress probably. It costs happiness. What do you think right here?
My wallet.
It costs your wallet. Tell me more.
Like when I'm stressed, I buy more.
Oh, so it costs stress, which costs, okay, interesting. Okay, what do you think?
It costs employees.
It costs employees, undeniably. If we look at it in business, everything you will say will actually cost in the bottom line. Yes, ma'am? It costs friendships, a lack of trust. I can still remember 5th grade when I told Jason Teedy who I liked, and he told everybody. It costs a friendship, or at least trust. What else? In the back. It costs commitment. Okay? Anything else come to mind? Sleep. Time. Faith. Okay. So let's keep going. In a very short time, I hope you saw a glimpse, and we could go into the research a whole lot longer. But basically, the second part of the research, what we looked at was, if trust is so important, how do you actually build it? How do you actually, is it just honesty and integrity? Is it just this? Is it just that? And it turns out there were 8 kind of traits that came out of the research. Kind of think of them as 8, don't think of them as, the representative word is a C word, but don't think of it as kind of some 8 motivational C's from a book. Think of it as 8 basically funnels of research, 8 ways, overall ways that trust is built. There are really 8 traits of the most trusted leaders and organizations of all time. So here they are. They're relatively co-equal. You might need more different times, so it's not in order of importance, but let's go. I call them pillars of trust today because I believe they hold up this great advantage we call the trust edge. Number 1 is clarity. People trust the clear and they mistrust or distrust the ambiguous or the overly complex. Whenever you complexify something beyond what is needed, you lose clarity, which loses trust. This is incredibly difficult. If you're in marketing today, there are so many marketing companies and strategy companies and branding companies that are not clear enough. They think they're clear and they're not. It is an enormous workload to be this clear. And it's costs, you can see the costs everywhere. You can talk about our country, right? The average bill that went through Congress 80 years ago was about 2.5 pages. Now it's about 1,300 and some. Nobody knows exactly what's in it. Because we can't go on intent, we have to go on it's actually less clear in some cases. There's a massive cost. Number 2 is compassion. We trust those that care beyond themselves. It's hard to be accountable to someone or follow someone if we don't believe they care at all beyond themselves. Is that not true? Think of who's the most trusted person in the world to the most people according to the research. It turns out it's not Oprah, Denzel, or even the Pope. The most trusted person in the world to the most people is? Mom, according to the research. Mom is most trusted. Yes. Mom will sacrifice generally, stay up late, put salve in that ugly when we trust mom. We need to learn something from mom, though, because compassion actually has a bottom line impact in a massive way. We teach several ways you show compassion in the workplace. We're not going to get into that today. Number 3, character. We trust those that do what's right over what's easy. Now, this is... Don't buy into the lie that you have all the character you have at 12 years old. You as a person, your company, your team, it's always increasing or decreasing in character every single day. You're moving toward or away from higher character. In fact, you can think of up in our part of the world, Minnesota, you saw what happened with Wells Fargo when they started. They have great values and vision and mission. I mean, Enron did too, by the way. They had one of the most beautiful mission statements that ever was. But when they started incentivizing against the character they said they wanted to have, and what did that cost? It just cost Wells Fargo billions of dollars. You're incentivizing by everything you do. You start taking managers, you're in the school of management, getting a management degree, you're incentivizing or de-incentivizing higher character every single day by what you encourage and allow. If you're encouraging or allowing certain isms, there's a host of things by what you laugh at, by what you. I watched a pro baseball thing. We've had the honor of working with some of the biggest sports teams in the country, global governments, whatever. I watched one sports team. I love humor, and sarcasm can be fun until it's not, and it becomes the Latin root of the word, right? Something like dog gripping flesh. Number 4 is competency. We might think, well, character, that's everything, isn't it? But yet, what's your name? Faith. What a word for trust. Perfect. So I might trust faith. I might have faith and trust, or faith, trust, yeah. I might have faith in you to, you're really throwing me off. I might trust faith to take my kids to the ball game because of her trust, because of her compassion and character. That doesn't mean I will trust faith to give me a root canal because of competency. You could have the others, and if you're not competent, if you're not staying fresh, relevant, and capable, I don't trust you. If your professors are teaching the same way they were 20 years ago, I don't trust them. If you're selling the way you were just 5 years ago, in every way, I don't trust you. If you're leading the way you were 10 years ago, I don't trust you. You've got to stay fresh, relevant, and capable. I would argue one of the best things you're going to learn at High Point is nothing except for how to learn fast. Learning how to learn and stay fresh and relevant and capable is going to be critical for you. Number 5 is commitment. We trust those that stay committed even in the face of adversity. And commitment breeds commitment. We'll come back to this one in just a moment, but if you think of anybody that's left a legacy in your life or in history, Mom, Dad, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Jesus, or Joan of Arc, you'll find someone that was trusted because they were committed to something beyond themselves, maybe to death. Commitment tends to breed commitment. Next pillar is connection. We trust those that are willing to connect and collaborate. By the way, when we go into big organizations, we're looking at counterforces to these sometimes. So a counterforce to clarity would be ambiguity, right, or complexity. A counterforce to compassion might be hatefulness. More commonly, it's apathy or any of the isms. Character, you can go down the list. So for connection, number 6, when we see siloing or the unwillingness to share resources for the betterment of all, we know we have an issue with that pillar. The 7th pillar is contribution. Really, the number 1 word out of this funnel kept being results. We trust those that contribute results, outcomes. Think of outcomes, performance. You can't just have compassion. You can't just have care. You got to contribute results. I go in for surgery. Let's say it's amputation. That surgeon is so compassionate, but they cut off the wrong leg. We got a problem because of results. You got to contribute results. You can't just have compassion. You just can't just have, right? And finally is consistency. Sameness is trusted. The only way to build a reputation, for good or bad, is consistency. The only way to build a brand is consistency of experience. Sameness. You'll be trusted for whatever you do the same every time. Think about if you're late all the time, I will in fact absolutely trust you to be late. I trust you. You don't wear enough clothes, I trust your Kardashian or whatever. So sameness, doing the same thing over and over. I have that same experience all the time. That's what's trusted. I might not like McDonald's, but I trust them. I've had the same burger on 6 continents. Pickles off-centered everywhere I go, right? So sameness is trusted. There's the 8-pillar framework. I believe, I hope without ego, but work now across 6 continents, certified partners on 6 continents, work across industries from corruption issues in East Africa to pro sports teams to businesses to Toyota, Walmart, Zoom. I believe you can solve every organizational leadership issue against these 8. Doesn't mean I know how. Doesn't mean it's not easy. It's easy. Doesn't mean I don't have to contextualize or learn. Doesn't mean I know every part of it. But if you come under these, you actually get to the real issue. And they work together. So when you say, it's engagement, it's one of these. When you say it's leadership, it's usually something here. When you even say communication, I was a communication undergrad, but at the core, and Dr. Quain's heard me say this right in front of him when he hired me to speak at events, I will say, at the core, it is never a communication issue. At the core. I know what you mean, but communication's happening all the time. Clear communication is trusted. Unclear communication is not. Compassionate is trusted. Hateful communication is not. Consistent is, inconsistent isn't. High character communication is trusted. Low character isn't. Do you see what I mean? So when you can come and define against these, you actually start to solve the real issue. Under these, under compassion, you can find things like empathy, appreciation, being present. You can go down and see kind of how broad the pillars are, but they fall under these, and when you define them against these, you actually can solve the real issue. So, also, let me say one more thing about working together. You say, well, we got clarity down. We share the vision at the annual meeting. We share the values. If you're not sharing them consistently, at least every 21 days, people don't know them, so they're not making decisions by them. So you lost clarity because of a lack of consistency. Does that make sense? Okay, talk to the person next to you. What do you think is your biggest opportunity? If you could build this pillar, what pillar would you say, oh, if I was stronger? We all have ones we can work on. I have ones I can work on it. But what if I could build this pillar with some audience, it's with my family, or this pillar with my roommates, or this pillar with my employer? What pillar would be one opportunity pillar you think you would have? Talk to the person next to you. 1 minute, go. All right, here we go. What's an opportunity? Anybody willing to share? Got the guts and willingness to share? Yeah? Compassion. Yeah, well, yeah. You struggle with that? What do you think your strongest pillar is? We all got strengths. Self-awareness.
Maybe character.
Yeah? Okay. Yep. All right, what do you think, sir? Consistency. What would be one spot, one opportunity that if you were just a little more consistent there, you think it would help you?
Probably my sleep schedule.
Sleep schedule? That's very self-aware of you. Many people, if they've got this issue and they need to back up to like something like sleep. Have you read Atomic Habits or know about Keystone Habits? A keystone habit is a habit that changes everything else, right? So for me, when I lost, 52 pounds in 5.5 months about a decade ago, and basically kept it off. By the way, have you ever seen Biggest Loser? Okay, that was a thing, right? It's kind of gone now, but it didn't work, did it? I think it's only like 6 or 9 of 127 people that actually kept their weight off. That turns out we can't all have a resort for life and have a TV show and all that, right? They all went back to bigger than they were. That wasn't a good, that way didn't develop any keystone habit. But sleep is often a significant keystone habit that all of a sudden change anger levels, change waistlines, change a whole lot of other things. So, great idea. What else? Yes, sir. Character. Where would be a spot that you'd be willing to say, I think I need to show more character in that? Understanding others' perspective. Is that right? So you can see how these flow together, right? Because a part of that would hit compassion pillar, which is the empathy piece, right? They all flow together. Thank you. Great. Any top of mind questions so far? On any of this case, 8 pillars? Yes?
This is kind of random, but why do they all start with the nurse?
So the reason the question was they start with C. I had a big battle inside about this because I'm a trust guy that's like, let's give the key closest word that came out of the research, and yet we learned that clarity for memory and understanding is really important. And I didn't want it to be some cheesy, like, let's make an acronym book or work, but I wanted it to be remembered and understood in a framework that people would use. And actually, 7 of these 8, the top words that came out of the research funnel was a C word. And so we started talking about contributing results, the results one, and it actually was easier for people to apply, understand, and use. So each of these, funny enough, many of these others, the second word that came out, connection and collaboration, same funnel. Another one was very similar to that. But anyway, you can find, of course, under compassion, you saw there was love, there was other things, but care was the second, right? Care and compassion were top words that came out of the same funnel. So they start with C's because it's the clearest way I know of explaining the full meaning of research. Yep, good question. All right? So we have a little, I know it's so short, little case for trust. If you buy into that, anybody really need a bunch more research? They don't, before we get into any takeaways or anything, like, I don't really think that trust stuff's important. I don't buy into any of this stuff. I don't trust this guy from Minnesota. Okay, and then we have 8-pillar framework. I hope you start to see how actually from what we've noticed, you can solve, if you solve under these, you actually start to solve the real issue that hits retention or attrition or sales or whatever it is. So then let's go deeper. We have, a few minutes at least. We can go into 2 or 3 of them. By the way, if you do come tonight, what time is it, Dr. Hall? 6:30. 6:30 tonight, that's really interactive. I'm just answering questions. So you can ask questions. I know it's on career development, but you can ask questions. I'm going to give some really cool takeaways in that time tonight, too, and even have a whiteboard out for a little bit, right? So we're going to...
We got a whiteboard right there, too.
Yeah, well, let's see what we have here for time. Let's get into a couple ideas, because I want to give you a couple things you can actually really use right away. But anyway, you come to that time, too, if you really want to interact or ask some more questions, and you certainly can still now, but I want to get through a couple things. So let's get into a couple of these. So clarity. Clarity, we can spend a whole multiple days on clarity. Clarity, when you think of some of your classes, strategically, we have two sides of clarity, the strategic side and the kind of the communication side, how we share this stuff. So strategically, you might learn MVP or MVPP, mission, vision, values, priorities up here. You might learn all the strategic things. And then on the other side, how do we actually communicate that consistently? That's a part of clarity for sure. So I'm going to just give one idea in this short time together. First, just a couple of clarity slides just for the fun of it, for me. This was outside of Dr. Hall's house. That was... All right, so I'm actually going to jump through this one and jump to this one. One idea. I believe the most overlooked, underused word that actually drives strategic clarity is not the why. The why is a good question. Lots of people talking about the why today. And Honor, Senec's work, and others' work. Have a why, have a strong purpose. If you don't have a strong purpose, you won't last 10 days on a goal often. Have a why, but it's not the question that takes an idea to an action. You might say, what about the work on the who, the great Collins work? I agree with that. I like that work. Getting the right who's on the bus in the right spots, that's really important. But there's still a problem, because often you'll have a bus full of really fun who's singing Kumbaya about their why still going off the cliff, because they're not doing anything differently. So it's good to have a why, and it's good to have the right who's in the right place, but that's not the question that takes an idea to an action, or the three questions. The three most overlooked, underused questions that actually take an idea to an action are these, I believe. Try to listen as if for the first time. Number one is how. Okay, we want to do that thing. How are we going to do it? Number two is way more important. How? The most important question of all is, ladies and gentlemen, you need to be able to ask this at least 3 times. It might take 7. I'll show you what I mean. I just had an executive from Walmart. It took 4 90-minute sessions, and he finally said, I finally got how. I didn't get it. I finally got it. I've just talked this to you. It's way more work than you think. How? So if we take the sleep example, we're going to say, okay, you've had opportunity to get more sleep forever. So how are you going to get more sleep? Oh, I'm going to do this. How am I going to do that? Until I'm going to do something today or tomorrow. I'm going to set an alarm so I'm going to bed by 10 or 9 or whatever you're going to decide. I'm going to read more. No, you're not. You've had that opportunity forever. How are you going to read more? Oh, I'm going to just read more. No, you're not. I'm going to sell more. No, you're not. How are you going to sell more? Well, I'm going to call more people. Do I trust them? Not for a second. How are you going to call more? I got to get a list. Okay, how am I going to get a list? I got to call that person tomorrow. You can always ask how until you can do something today or tomorrow. I'll give 2 quick examples. One example was one of the biggest healthcare organizations in North America about, 10 years ago or something. We're at a private location. They're losing HCAP funding. They're losing patients. The 100 of them, and the CEO, we've done this trust work, and the CEO's off to the side here, and I said, what do you really want to change first? What do you think you need to change? And the CEO stood up and said, we need a better culture. We're dying. I said, great. How are you going to start to have a better culture? He said, well, we like the first pillar you started with, clarity. We're going to start there. We're going to be more clear. Do I trust him? Not yet. I said, great. How are you going to be more clear? He sat down, talked to his team. When he was ready, he stood up and said, a Harvard graduate CEO said, we're going to communicate more. Do I trust him? Not for a second. I honor him. How are you going to communicate more? He sat down. When he was ready, talked to his team, he stood up and said, we're going to hold each other accountable. After I threw up in my mouth, I said, great. How? Because you know what I know about accountability? People have accountability as a value. You can't believe how many companies have accountability as a value and they don't know what it means. We finally created a framework for accountability. If you'd like it, you can get it through Dr. Hall. But I would ask people in companies that would have accountability as a value, hey, you've got accountability as a value. How do you hold people accountable here? You know what they said? Most of them? How, accountability stuff. They don't know. I asked how 7 more times that day. The CEO came up with something he could start doing today or tomorrow. Then the senior leadership team did. That CEO wrote us 7 years later and said that was the tipping point of change for a company you all know the brand of. How, until you can do something today or tomorrow. On the weight loss thing, I started asking people. This doc said, you got to do something about that. You're not going to be hanging out with your kids in a decade. I said, great. But how? Because I had the excuse, you fly out a couple hundred times a year, you do this, you do that, everybody, you got to go to banquets, you got to go to this, and I could use that for excuse and die or do something else. So anybody that was on a plane that kind of has a schedule like I have, that has to travel like I do and stuff like that, I would ask them, anybody that looked fit, I'd say, how do you, not creepy, how do you stay fit, but I'd ask them, how do you stay fit in this lifestyle? You know what they all said? 4 words. All you got to do is eat less, exercise. That was not clear enough for me. More than what? Christmas Day, whatever. So I said, but how? How do you do it doing that? How? I asked how until I got several things I could actually do today or tomorrow. Now, I'm not judging anybody. We all have different things we're dealing with in life and work, right? We all have different things. I'm not a fitness expert. Are we clear? This is not healthcare advice, HR in here. Are we clear? Okay? This is just an example of how clear you need to be to change anything. Sales or life. One example of the several. A doc came up to me. I remember it still. He was on this side of the stage. He said, David, here's an idea that might fit your how plan. He's 80 years old. His wife was next to him. They were fit as could be. I thought I could learn something from these guys. You can't believe how much advice I got from people I didn't want to look anything like. These guys, you want to take advice from people that are successful in the way you want to be, right? So I said, I can learn. So Doc said this. He said, here's one idea. Most men in America, if they just wouldn't drink their calories, they'd lose 30 to 50 pounds in 1 year, eating exactly the same. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. I knew it wouldn't be true for me. I'm not a legalist about alcohol, but I never liked it. I didn't even like the smell of it in college. That was not my problem. So what about juice? I grew up, actually, believe it or not, this is decades ago, but I grew up thinking juice was good for you. I know. This is before you smart people. We thought you drink your orange juice, get your vitamin C. Like, don't I need my vitamin C? He said, yeah, eat an orange, drink some water. You want to get sick, drink juice. Like, oh, okay. So I cut the juice out. Then I had something else happen. So I grew up in the poorest county in Minnesota. We would go to summer vacation Bible school. So I'm 8 miles from the nearest town of 500 people, but there's a little chapel where Grandma went to church, and we would bicycle up there from our farm. We'd bicycle up there to think of a summer camp, like a day camp, okay, like a church day camp. So we'd bicycle up there, and we would have lunch on line. It was great. It was the only week in the summer we didn't have to throw hay bales or pick rocks or walk beans or corn or whatever. And so we'd get there, and at lunchtime, you'd sit on the lawn together, and the rich kids, what did they have for lunch? They had tins, didn't they? Spider-Man, Superwoman. We had brown paper sacks, right? And the rich kids would open that tin, and they'd pull out a Coke or a Pepsi. What do you call that out? You probably call it soda. You're sophisticated. In Minnesota, we call it pop because we can spell that. So we didn't get to do that until finally. Mom started putting in something that went just like the rich kids. I don't even know if you guys have heard of it. Shasta. Have you all heard of Shasta? No way. Nickel a can, baby. So we finally started to have our own can, right? So that was so special to me. When I started flying more 25 years ago, the stewardess said, I could have my very own can. I'll take 5. I could do 5 Cokes on a flight. That's good for you. So the final how was this. And this isn't something you'll do. Remember, you got to pick something you will do. Someone says I can never have ice cream again. It's not happening. So you got to pick a how you'll do. So the how was, I'm not going to drink a calorie on the plane. And then the how became, I'm not going to drink a calorie. The point of it is you have to ask how until you can act on it today or tomorrow. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? You start thinking of, let's take the simple idea of sales. How are you going to do that? I'm going to call more people. How are you going to do that? I'm going to get a list. How are you going to you can't even say I'm going to get a list. How am I going to get the list by today or tomorrow? I'm going to read more. How are you going to do that? I don't even have a book on the night table. How are you going to do that? I got to get a book. How am I going to do that? At 10 a.m. A final how always has a who, when, and where. Who, you maybe. When, if I'm going to work out tomorrow and I don't know it's 5:30 in the morning, I will not do it. Choices don't win on this. If I don't know where, I'm either going to go work out at the workout club or I'm going to go for a run. If I have a choice at 5:30, I will do neither. By the way, you have to have a final who. Many in management have been lied to. Co-leadership is terrible. Collaborative leadership is excellent. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. But you can't have healthy accountability when there are more than one. The data even shows if you have more than one person on a final task, Bill and Sue are doing this, you have 50% less chance of it ever getting done. I'm not saying don't sacrifice. I'm not saying don't jump in. I'm not saying don't help each other. And I am saying healthy accountability, healthy trust happens when you have one person. You say, well, David, I know the co-CEOs of this. If co-CEO works, usually they have different roles. It's just like in life, right? How many of you, are any of you married in here yet? Okay, that's good. Yes, Daniel, good. When you get married, if you get married, this is nothing about about traditional marriage or not. But those married in here, we can just ask if they agree in a moment. Think about this. Clarity, how clarity wins in marriage. I'm not saying who should do what, who should do the dishes, who should do that. However, if you have to come home, let's just say you both work, and you have to come home every night, okay, rock, paper, scissors, who's doing the dishes tonight? Rock, paper, scissors, who's mowing the lawn? Rock, paper, scissors, who's doing, you know what, that's stress. Think about it, it's like, if you have, hey, I generally do, doesn't mean we don't help sacrifice, but if I generally do this, and you generally do this, you know what that gives? That clarity gives? Peace, efficiency, effectiveness. I can find the best way to do the dishes, right? Or mow the lawn, or whatever it is. Clarity wins. Don't have meetings. You start to have meetings. Right now, you're collaborating on a marketing plan or something like that. Don't have meetings where you go away without a how. Somebody's going to do something by today or tomorrow. And you might have multiples of those, but somebody is going to do something by today or tomorrow. Are we clear? How, until you can do something. Any questions? Now, this doesn't take away from, I'll just remark on it because I like the book. There's a new book called Who Not How. I know the person that wrote it. That still stands on its own as a great idea, and so does how. That book says find the right who's to help you with their how, but the truth is, that book's a lot about leverage. You can't leverage everything. So even when you get successful and become a billionaire, even billionaires that hire a trainer, that trainer does not make them fit. They actually have their own how. Even you can hire a lot of people to send your spouse roses or a gift, but that's still on you to be a great spouse. You still have responsibility. You are still going to have to do things, even though someday you can leverage more and more things. Get it? Okay. How. One quick idea under that one. So let's talk about commitment for a moment, just a moment. I'm only going to talk about one idea under this one, commitment, a couple commitment slides quick. These guys are real committed. Hey, what's the number one asked for? If you get a tattooed on your body, you're committed, right? What's the number one asked for tattoo in America? Commercial tattoo, not mom across her heart. Company tattoo, what is it? What is it? Name of the spouse. That's one of the top 3, but company tattoo. Harley Davidson. Harley riders are committed. They'll tat it on their body. They'll put it on their gut. They'll go to visit Milwaukee. They'll go to Sturgis, South Dakota, 300,000 of them in the middle of COVID and kiss and hug and whatever. They're committed. And commitment breeds commitment. It wasn't always this way, by the way. In 1981, when the new ownership took over this tanking little motorcycle company that should have been wiped off the map of American history, the new ownership said, we're going to be committed to two things in a whole new way. Number one, we're going to be committed to quality again. Number two, we're going to be committed to our favorite first-time buyer, who at the time they defined as, I don't know if these guys did even hear of this. They defined it back then as the yuppie that wants to look like a renegade on the weekend. What's that? What's a yuppie? The doctors, the nurses, the rich salespeople. That wants to look like a renegade, and they stayed committed to that group. And commitment bred commitment. And if you would have put $1 in Harley stock in the 25 years back from when I did the research, your dollar would have appreciated. It would have been one of the top 25 American stocks over that time period. And it would have appreciated like only a few, Berkshire Hathaway, Microsoft, a few others. It would have appreciated by nearly 18,000%. Commitment breeds commitment. And you don't generally get commitment without giving commitment. In fact, how do you rebuild trust? How do you rebuild it once you lost? We got a 10-step process for how you rebuild trust. Talk to the person next to you. You got 30 seconds. What's one way you would rebuild trust? Talk to them. Go. All right. What do we got? Yes, sir.
I was going to say show change.
Show change. Thank you. Yes, two of you together. We'll start with the lady. Communication. Transparency. Yes. Okay, it's a good one. What else? Yes, sir. Actions, not words. Set a time. No, just time. Time, okay. Show devotion. You're smart students. Many people would say, apologize. Now, I'm not saying you don't need to apologize to open the door of communication. And there's a big we have a 10-step process. If you just had a company that had an oil spill and you have to rebuild trust, there's a lot of steps to what you can do. But it turns out whether you're a big company or an individual, you never rebuild trust on the apology. Some of us around a little bit have you heard someone say, I'm sorry I'm late? No, you're not. You're late every single day. We don't retrust on the apology. Doesn't mean you don't need to open the door to share that, but you only rebuild trust on what many of you have said, and that is showing it, actions. You only rebuild trust by actually making and keeping a commitment. It's the only way. Number one, action. So actually, I can even go black. All right. Or not. This kind of starts with yourself. I'm going to do one. Actually, I'm going to come to that at the end. I'll wrap some. I'm going to give you 3 questions really quickly. 3 questions for leaders under this pillar. Number 1, would you follow you? One of the great things you're learning in academia is a lot. You're learning a lot of things. You're learning how to learn. You're learning from a lot of others. The problem with academia is we learn to be critical. And we often judge others by their actions and ourselves by our intent. And we're so quick to learn to judge because you're learning critical thinking. And yet, as my wise older brother, the economist, would say, we're in a more critical world than we've ever been in without the ability to critically think. And you've seen it on social media. You've learned how to critique each other. You're even asked for it in your classrooms. Okay, let's critique that speech of that person. Let's critique this. Let's critique. You're going to do a case study. Okay, let's critique how Coca-Cola did that. Let's critique how Apple did that. You're learning how to critique so much others and sometimes not look at yourself. Spend a little more time thinking, okay, would I follow them? Would I follow them? Yeah, discern that. But what about me? Number 2, do you have decision-making values? Some of them have the book, Trusted Leader, some classes? Yeah. So in the book, the last book, Trusted Leader, it's worth taking the time to learn. You don't have to get the book. You can get the info. We can give you a PDF or something on how to create decision-making values. We've seen this transform even senior leaders. This is not just values you have in life like faith, family, friendship. This is values you'll make every decision by. And this, I can give you stories about how this changed our world. The second thing, if you manage anybody or you're even in a club right now, is there any way your club or team is incentivizing against the character you say you want to have? And this is by what you allow and what you laugh at usually on teams. Okay, last pillar I want to share, and then I might wrap with a little story here. I do want to just touch on this one because I think it's relevant to everybody. Sameness is trusted. Consistency, a couple consistency sides, all right. It's the little things done consistently that make the biggest difference, not the big things. If I'm overweight, it's because I've had too many mocha lattes over years, not because I ate too much this morning for breakfast. If I'm a good husband, it's because I've loved and honored my wife over time, not because I gave her a diamond ring and a dozen roses one time, right? Not that that wouldn't help. But it's the same with leadership or anything. I want the salesperson. Dr. Haynes and I, we were talking about this morning. We want, number one, we want consistency. You can hit a home run once, but that's done. We want someone that will be consistent. It's the same with leadership. Oh, I shared the vision. It's nothing unless you do it consistently. Consistency wins. You are a function of your habits, right? Little things done consistently. We got a big problem, and that's this. Every single interaction you have with every single person, you increase or decrease trust just a little bit. I saw one interaction in one boardroom. The chairman and the CEO had been friends for 20 years. They'd gone to family vacations together. And then one day, that CEO got so angry, he threw a clipboard across the boardroom. They never spoke again. The worst part for the company that began to tank that very day, everyone in there noticed the CEO and would no longer share bad news with him because of his rage. And because he never heard bad news again, the company tanked. Because he was on one interaction. Your roommates, your parents, you increase trust or decrease trust just a little bit every interaction. This is the pain for all of us. I'm so imperfect. Everything I'm teaching today, by the way, I'm totally imperfect at. I just know it's true from the research. But every interaction you have with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, that employer, that employee. This is a very good friend of mine, Kevin Ridgway. We're different in a couple big ways. He was a master's level bodybuilding competitor, 48 years old in this picture. This was the day before he was hit head on by a Land Rover, January 12, 2017. Smashed in his vehicle. The surgeon said he would have died immediately except for the muscle mass he had on his chest. Instead, he went into a coma. Doctor said he would not wake and if he did, it would be with brain damage. 5.5 weeks later, Kevin woke up miraculously without brain damage. 66 days later, he was able to put his gym clothes back on that he went in the accident and stand by his bedside for a few moments, and I got a picture. In 66 days, Kevin lost 66 pounds. No fault of his own, of course, but what's the message for you? Under this pillar, atrophy is guaranteed without intentional action. Your body is atrophying every day unless you're putting the right proteins and health things in it, right? Your relationships are atrophying unless you're continually connecting. Same with your prospects. Same with your friends. You've got to consistently put things. People forget. They lose touch. We lose touch, humanity, so quickly unless you're intentionally consistent. Why do healthy things grow? At least on our farm, those beans, they don't just need water once, they need it consistently. They need nitrogen consistently. But it's everything. Healthy things grow and sick things die. Sick cows die. Sick churches become divided. Sick marriages become divorced. Healthy things die, and the same with organizations. And the only way to have health is put the right things in consistently. So that's a quick on the 8-pillar framework. I might close this with one last story, but and I'll stick around here for a few moments right up here, and you'll have time for questions tonight if people come back at 6:30. Or were we going to be at 6:30? Or you're gonna close this out anyway? Yeah, you can go to the details. Any burning questions for everybody? Otherwise, I'll just be here, and you can come up and ask me afterwards. All right. Does everybody here know what a Playboy magazine is? Y'all know what it is? Okay. Because everything's digitized now, like back when we were around that, right? So it's like a real bad website. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to the farm once. This trust stuff, the problem with the trust stuff compared to some people, you're going to have people today that want to have quick fixes, right? You want to quickly get this, you want to quickly make that, you want to quickly everything. And the problem with the trust stuff is it takes work. It takes work. It takes time. It takes effort. Some of you have even heard ideas actually based on it's not false research, the psycho-cybernetics work, but it's some kind of motivational speakers have tweaked it and said you can change a habit in 21 days when that's not really the fullness of that research at all. We know a neural pathway takes about 90 days, and even that research said up to like 294 days. So people that want these quick fixes, that's not usually the way. It takes work, and that's the problem with this trust stuff. It takes time, it takes work, but it's work that's worth it. It's the most important work you could be about. I promised if you'd like our latest research, you can take a picture, you can email Margaret, she'll send you a bunch of videos and a bunch of new, some of our stuff. But let me end with this quick story. I'm going to go back to, I was 10 or 11, 12 years old, and I was, none of my older siblings were on the farm. It was a long summer day, middle of the summer. None of our planting team or harvest team was there. It was just mom and dad and myself. My 5 older siblings were off the farm. About 5 in the morning, we would get up on those long summer days in Minnesota, have breakfast. 5:30 in the morning, we were out the door. I jump in the blue Chevy pickup truck with Dad. Mom was staying in the house doing whatever she does. Drive down the quarter-mile dirt drive. We can't see another house from ours. We go from field to field and irrigator to irrigator. We have dark red kidney beans like you have in Chile. If you love Chile, you'd love our farm. I OD'd by 3rd grade. But we're in the far reaches of the farm. It's a public dirt road, but I don't know what neighbor or who left it there, but there was some junk in the middle of the dirt road. And you need to know something about my daddy. He hates litter. He didn't say much, but I knew exactly what I was supposed to do when he swerved that pickup truck over in such a way that my door was immediately above the litter. I opened the door and I reached down and I picked up the Playboy magazine. Now, I am not here to tell you what's right and wrong. I used to be an ethics professor. I am here to tell you if you act on what you said you do not believe, you will lose trust in less than a second. I knew exactly what my daddy said he believed about this kind of thing. I knew he didn't think it was the right way to look at women or the right way to treat women. I knew exactly what I thought, what he thought. I'd seen him mentor our rough, tough, hired guys, my older brothers. I dropped it before the pickup truck, he kicked it under the seat. We kept going from field to field and irrigator to irrigator. Pretty soon we're in the far reaches of pretty soon it's about mid-morning on the farm, so you know what that is, about 7:30. Anyway, we came up the quarter-mile driveway. I ran into the house to help Mom play, whatever I did. He drove the truck out to the shop. He started working on some tractors. I'm in the house with Mom, the phone rings. Back then, there was only one phone on a farm and it had a cord attached. Took a message. Usually, nothing was so urgent back then. She would just take the message, Mom did, and put it on Dad's lunch spot, but not this day. This day, it must have been urgent. She said, David, go give this to your dad. Some random time that morning, I ran out into the attached garage, no windows on that side of the house, no way to see what Dad was doing in the back side of the house, no way he would hear me, lost most of his hearing in the crane wear, no way he would know I was coming, except, I don't know why, but on this day I ran into the attached garage and there's one little entry door window looking at the back side of the farm. I still don't know why I stopped inside. But I stopped without making a noise, and I peered through that window. And I watched my daddy from a football field length away, not thinking a soul's watching. I watched him, and what I saw would change my life forever. Because I watched my daddy pull himself out from under the tractor he was working on, walk around the other side of the combine, walk up between two trees, walk up to the other side of the blue Chevy pickup truck, open the door, reach under the seat. And without thinking a soul's watching, I watched him pick up that Playboy magazine, and I watched him keep his arm outstretched. And I watched him walk 30 paces over to the shop furnace where I watched him throw it into the fire. You think I trust my daddy? Because he does what he says he'll do even when no one's looking for. That's where we create the habits for when someone just might be. I always wondered why all these people loved working for my dad, why hundreds of people came back to celebrate him not too long ago. That he was a good farmer. Was he that great? I think they came back because of that. And that's the same right now for you. You building that character muscle, that trust muscle of doing what's right over what's easy, of being consistent, of being clear, that takes work, but it's work that's worth it. I'm excited to spend the day with some or many of you, thank you for letting me be here today. I'll answer questions over here as long as you'd like, and you're up.